Hello everyone, my name is El Parnaso, and for today's video I'm going to show you how to use Prosperity for seeds in the Pure Yami deck. My template is going to be the deck that I use for YCS Lima when I get top 8. So let's start first with the cards that obviously you're never going to ban. And those are gonna be these seeds. Technically and strictly talking, these are the only cards that you actually need in your extra deck. So everything else, as long as you see it as utility, not get confused with win more utility, you're gonna be good. Focus on these six. Okay. Now you never touch this. So let's say, for example, that you are in a scenario where you don't have any starter. Any way to play. So you need to start with the Prosperity because there's no other play available, and because you're digging for a play desperately, you're banishing seeds. Okay, you mostly are going to banish seeds because of how consistent this card allows your deck to be, going first, going second, without side deck, with side deck. Amazing card. Okay, so let's say that we are going to look for a starter. So the first card that we're going to try to banish is going to be the Link Spider, because we are not going to project ourselves to be in a position where we are going to try to respect Nib to the point that we can try to make this after we get Nib. We don't need to do this after we get Nib, so we can get rid of this first. We are not taking that luxury at this point, because we don't even have a way to play. Because we don't have a way to play, we are not we are taking also the Almirage, because, or whatever we're going to summon, because it's going to be the only play that we dig for this, is not going to be the Almirage, because we don't have a second play. There's an exception, if you have, for example, a lot of hand traps that you can normal summon, and one of them is Ash Blossom for the Muchami Fugados of your opponent, for the possible Fugados of your opponent. But let's just get in this scenario first. Now, the other card that you're going to banish is the Lizard, because you're not going to try to have the luxury of respect Contact C if you're in a position where you can even start to play the game, right? So at that point, you accept the exchange of the 1-for-1. You also are not going to be available to use the effect of draw this turn. Therefore, you can get rid of it this turn. So to wait until turn 3, 4, when you don't even have a way to play, is kind of greedy. Then we take these two, because we don't need them for the development of our plays. We need them when our plays are getting developed. So in this specific scenario, these are just more useful at this point, being an extra card to banish than being in the extra deck. That is why we also take a 6th card, the Typhoon. So as you can see, even though we are banishing 6, we are still gonna have very good ways to play. If we dig Engage, we have all we need for the combo. If we dig Hornet, the same. We still have as extra boss monsters, the Herald and the Little Knight, because at the end of the day, again, as I said in a prior video, you don't need always to leave the Herald. If you can't leave the Herald, or if you need to waste a lot of resources, you can just wait for your opponent's turn, because whenever your Yami interruptions are getting played, you're gonna get to the point when you are going to be available to summon this with the Snatchy effect. So just don't try to get desperate, and don't think that because you don't have the Synchros tree, the Herald is going to be useless. Now, let's say that you have the Ash Blossom, and you maybe have the Extender. If you are in that scenario when you have a lot of hand traps and an Ash Blossom, you can get maybe greedy. I'm not that much sure, but if you are already planning to make your play with a normal summon to become Almirage, you can discard the idea of having the Yami, or having the Sky Striker dig for the Prosperity, and therefore this card is just for a possible turn 3, 5, or even 5th, if you don't have monsters in the main monster zone. So at that point you can get rid of the Kagari. there's not that much of a problem, except the specific scenario when you dig the seeds, you only have the hand traps and the Ash Blossom, and the only possible way to play within those seeds is this card. So, well, even in that scenario, you can just normal summon the hand trap Almirage, and the token is still a level 1 monster. But you know, you do you. I'm just giving you the scenarios and the possibilities. Now let's say that we are going second and we interact with opponent with a lot of non-engine and we need to dig for a card. Again, we take these two, and now, because we are in the scenario when we actually need to play going second, you are not going to get greedy to the point that you are going to summon the Herald. If you're going second, your opponent not only use their cards that are engine and are already kind of visible, but they're going to have the hand traps that they will have used if you go first. Therefore, if you are going second and you are already breaking a board, you are not breaking a board against the hand traps only. You are breaking a board against the engine interactions of your opponent. So that plus that you don't have in a scenario when you make Prosperity for seeds going first, makes justifiable enough to get rid of the Herald. Remember, you don't need the Herald. This is an utility card, a great utility card and blah, 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 but you don't strictly need it, so you're going to be fine. Again, you take this one, you take this one, and as you now, let's see that you're going second and you're trying to dig for a card that you need before you start to play, and you already have the Sky Striker card available in your hand, but you need to get rid of other cards first with, I don't know, Raigeki, Lightning, Pancra, blah, 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 in order for this card to actually do what you want it to do. So in those cases, you can just get rid of the Typhoon or the Almirage. It's going to depend, this fits its card whenever you go second, of what's the scenario. You have already the Sky Striker card available, don't get rid of this. You are trying to seek non-engine, but you have a normal summon and a Yami card, so you maybe don't get rid of this. Or you're trying to respect cards like there can only be one, blah, blah, blah. Or you are aware that making Typhoon after you use your cards and you get interrupted is not going to be worth enough to justify the space. So most of the time, because you still don't know what the Prosperity is going to get you, you are maybe going to banish these seeds. There's also scenarios when you need to consider where you know that you are going to break the opponent's board and you are going to play a turn 3, a turn 5, maybe even a turn 6 or 7, and you need the resources of the Yami cards whenever they develop in those future turns. So in those scenarios, you prioritize the utility that the Yami cards will going to get you in the medium and long term, and you can have, for example, these two and get rid of these two. And mostly because you don't know still if you're going to get a Sky Striker card, you want to save this, so you maybe are going to be put in a position where you just save the Herald and you are here. Now, there's also a chance that you are playing a heavy NIP format in your locals or when that is also you have to about the Herald, you save this because it doesn't matter if or your start board and the red strategy you're to get point going to use it, because when you that point to get mostly I want you to be in a heavy NIP format where you are going constantly, because this will allow you, for example, you get NIP, you use the token with this, you summon whenever and whatever extender you have, and now because you are going second, this can put the NIP in defense. NIP has only 600 defense, so you can guarantee that after almost all the interactions, you're still gonna have your engine develop without your opponent having a monster available to interact with it without having to use any card or effect, because the NIP is also going to get rid of its own monsters. So technically this will be the only monster on the field at that point. So you'll be good. Also, because whenever you go second, there's scenarios when you are going to put the minion. Maybe you can get to the point where you're breaking the field even after NIP, and you can get the 1600. Again, that's a very specific scenario, but that's also a projection that you may have whenever you prosperity for seeds. And you can keep the card in those scenarios, and as you can see, you can still banish seeds that technically are not going to be that useful, and even you can decide to make exchanges like this whenever you want to break a board, because maybe you value more to break the board or to interact with your opponent's card the fact that Almiraj can be made than the Kagari. Or there's scenarios where maybe you side out the Sky Striker card for whatever reason, so this just becomes a fodder. So as you can see, there's a lot of scenarios when you can banish prosperity for seeds, and it's not actually that big of a problem, but you need to consider in which specific scenario you are in to understand what are the extra deck cards that has the specific utility for that specific duel or single, to become a cost for the prosperity, because this is also a utility for the extra deck as long as this card exists. These cards change the way that you play and perceive Yu-Gi-Oh! As long as it exists. And one example is becoming your cards in the extra deck as a utility for cost for the activation of this spell. So you need to consider that as a utility too, and that is why it's very important to build your deck around the idea that these are the cards that you need. Because when you become your deck this, and strictly this, you have 9 cards that can fulfill the value of the seeds that you need for this. And again, there's a big difference in banishing 3 and banishing seeds. There's a lot of situations where I've been in where the Capsi was the 4 card, the seeds card, or the only starter available was the seeds card. And come on, if you're playing this deck, you know that there's a big difference breaking a board pushing with a normal or special summon Capsi than any of the other Yami cards. So I was just trying to show you the logic behind prosperity and banishing seeds in a pure Yami deck, and how you should approach your deck in order to make the most of this card and not get perjured by it, or don't feel perjured by it. If you like it, please share and subscribe. I'm making videos every day. Let's go. Thank you.